All right, so how many of you are familiar with the Institute of Noetic Sciences? Most of you, great. So I'm president of IONS. I'm just starting my 17th year there, so as you can see, I started when I was 9. And so we've done a whole lot of work at IONS about how people transform. How do people make fundamental shifts in their worldviews and ways of being that can lead us to a more just and sustainable world? And we're starting to bring all of that research to bear on kind of leveraging what we've learned about how worldviews shift to help people who are trying to make change in the world be more effective. So that's what the topic of this talk is. So I want to propose to you that all of you, I think, are agents of change in this room, and many people you know are. It's possible, it's probable that you are, and I do as well, engaging in activities that are actually unintentionally counterproductive to the cause that you're trying to advocate for. I do it, we all do it, and I certainly see it on the national stage among people that I look at the news and I go, why are you doing that? You're doing the exact opposite thing that you want to be doing, even though they're really trying their best. We're also collectively, as people who are working for a more just and sustainable world, not doing some simple things that work better, that scientific findings can help us learn. And often, and I do this as well, and I see it on the TV, we pay more attention to what we are saying and doing than how we are being while we're doing it. So we do these things as advocates. I mentioned earlier today that the Institute has created a consciousness transformation model that came out of 15 years of research on how people make fundamental shifts in their lives that move them toward a more service-oriented, meaningful, hope-filled life way of being. And we don't have time to get into it all now, but I would recommend that you go look at our work online, and you can get the book Living Deeply, The Art and Science of Transformation if you want to know more about it. But it came out of interviewing thousands of people about their transformations from a more constricted, fear-filled, ego-driven life to a more open, loving and service-oriented life. And we also followed people who were engaging in transformative processes over time to unpack how that happened for them, which practices were exactly the ones that supported that transformational process, what were the catalysts, what were the outcomes, what were the mediators. So lots and lots of research on this. And so we have a little bit of an idea of what they reported caused behavior change. And what I can tell you is that in the world out there, when as a society we're trying to make a change, or if an organization is trying to make a change, the vast majority of their resources and dollars often go toward distributing information to people about what needs to happen. So if you look at dietary recommendations or things like that, our companies, our organizations, our government agencies will spend a lot of time giving people information, even though we think information might only be about 10% of what causes behavior change. A very small proportion of what inspires people to see the world differently and engage in new behaviors is information. So it's partly because we just have a built-in system where when we hear information that is not in alignment with what we believe to be true to kind of keep ourselves safe and coherent, we just block it out. There's something called inattentional blindness in the research literature, change blindness, and I'm going to show you a little video that kind of demonstrates this.
It's just, there's all this pressure, and sometimes it feels like it's right up on me, and I can just feel it, like literally feel it in my head, and it's relentless, and I don't know if it's going to stop. I mean, that's the thing that scares me the most, is that I don't know if it's ever going to stop.
Yeah. Well, you do have a nail in your head.
It is not about the nail.
Are you sure? Because, I'll bet if we got that out of there...
Stop trying to fix it.
No, I'm not trying to fix it. I'm just pointing out that maybe the nail is causing...
You always do this. You always try to fix things when what I really need is for you to just listen.
See, I don't think that is what you need. I think what you need is to get the nail
See,
out.
you're not even listening now.
Okay, fine. I will listen. Fine.
It's just, sometimes it's like, there's this achy, I don't know what it is. And I'm not sleeping very well at all. And all my sweaters are snagged. I mean, all of them.
That sounds really hard.
It is. Thank you. Ow!
Oh, come on. If you would just...
Don't.
Try to see things my way. Do I have to keep on talking till I can't go on? We can work it out. We can work it out.
So I would say there's a lot of us, especially in the United States, but also all around the world, where we are witnessing some pretty massive regressions to a more isolationist, fear-driven, violent way of thinking about things. And we keep wondering, why would you engage in a behavior or endorse a candidate that is not even in your own self-interest? And that's how precious people's current belief systems are to them. My current meaning system, my current belief system, it keeps me safe. It makes me understand who I am and how the world works. And if you try to shake that up, especially when I feel scared, it's just not gonna happen. It's definitely not gonna happen through simply information. So the next thing we usually go to is, okay, if it's not information, how can I motivate this person? How can I convince them how important this is? How much we're, on the pathway toward destruction? So we engage in things like reasoning with them, badgering them, conveying the urgency, instilling fear, attempting to elicit compassion in ways that unfortunately are very, very distressing, or just trying to get them to listen to us, giving them a big smack. All of these things are actually not super, super helpful. So what I want you to do now is take just 1 minute, please. So just 30 seconds, 45 seconds each, to turn to someone next to you, share 1 or 2 things that you have tried to change how someone else is thinking that have been ineffective. 1 or 2 things that you've tried to wake somebody up to some truth that hasn't worked out so well. Okay, go ahead, and I'll say when you should switch to the second person. Okay, please switch to the second person. Please switch to the second person. Okay, so let's bring our attention back to the room now, please. Please bring your attention back to the room. And so on this screen are several ways. I've done this now many, many times with people, and these are some of the ways that people say that they try to change someone else that's not so effective. Reason with them, argue your case, tell them they don't care enough, roll your eyes, use body language, pout, sulk, yell, raise your voice, cry. I mean, there's all kinds of things, insult them. This is what we see in our own relationships. It's what we see in our communities when we have disagreements. It's what we see right now a lot on the national stage. I mean, if you looked at the debates, you saw a lot of yellings, eye rolling, shrugging, all of this stuff that really doesn't help at all. Ineffective, I should say. So these methods sometimes will trick us because they seem to be effective. However, they result in only temporary motivation. So they'll take out the trash tonight, but then you're having the same talk 3 days from now. It results also in a paradoxical increase in defenses against what you're trying to make happen. So you think you've been successful because you took them to the mat, but then when you try it the next time, they've doubled up on their defenses, and they're like, it's not happening this time. Or lip service or superficial changes, which is almost worse than the other two, where someone says, absolutely, you are 100% correct, we will institute that immediately, and they don't do anything about it. So if it's not those two things, then what is it? What's the remaining 80%? Well, I think, and our research indicates, that we have to create the conditions for a shift in worldview to take place in the person, either at a small level or at a very big level. And being able to stimulate or catalyze a shift in worldview in your audiences or in the people that you're trying to influence as a change maker is no walk in the park. But there are some things we know that work. So first of all, understanding this idea of worldview transformation, it's not just rearranging the, what do they say, rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic. You know, it's not just rearranging the furniture. It's actually shifting the foundation of how someone sees something. So it's almost like someone's walking down a path and you're saying, come on, look, 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 over the horizon there, I can show you something. I know it's there, I'm gonna tell you it's there. Instead, you can lead them on top of the mountain so they can see it themselves. So you're trying to work on an actual perspective shift in people, and it has to be experiential for that to happen. So as Shawan said, we're founded by the Apollo 14 astronaut Edgar Mitchell, and his epiphany in space on the way back from his moonwalk after having been the sixth person to walk on the moon was really the seed of the founding of the Institute of Noetic Sciences, and it's really what we're still investigating, is when he got that view of the Earth from space, and obviously not that many people get to have that, it shifted everything for him. He was like, wait a second, we can't possibly be spending so much time inventing new ways to kill each other. There are no boundaries between countries. When you view the Earth from space, we totally made those up, and now we've been fighting over imaginary lines for millennia. This is crazy. And also what he saw was that most of the problems that face us right now in our society are not natural disasters, viruses, sometimes that still happens, but the vast majority of things are caused by limitations in our own consciousness. They're limits in what we think is possible. So one example I like to use is, I believe that our children, our grandchildren at least, are gonna turn to us and say, is it true that you used to put people in cages when they were desperate and mentally ill and sick? And we'll have to say, yeah. Well, why did you guys let it happen? Well, we thought it was the only way to do it. There's gonna be a different way to do that someday, and there's gonna be a different way to do a lot of other things too, but it's gonna be a consciousness transformation moment. We have the technology right now on our planet to have 100% renewable energy all across the planet, to feed everyone, to get clean water to everyone. So it's not a matter of limits in technology, it's a matter of the way we think, that we don't think it's possible. So that's our job as change makers, is to help people see possibilities. So once you've had, Edgar had this deep noetic experience, and that's what the word noetic means, is direct, undeniable experience. It's one of those things that once you have the experience, once you see something new or hear something new, you can't unsee it. It's the ring of truth that Shawan talked about. It's something that is so moving that you can feel it. Now, I get chills when it happens, so that's always a good signal for me. Let's see, I want to give you another video that kind of shows you what it's like when you see or hear something for the first time. This is a baby who just got his hearing aids, so it's the first time he's ever heard a sound.
Hello. I've never seen that face before. Hi. Are you emotional? You're gonna make me cry. Hi. Is there a little chin? Hi. Yeah, are you gonna be emotional like your mama? Yeah. You're so sweet. Yeah. 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 I love you. I love you.
I love that video. The reason I show it is not just to give you a massive burst of oxytocin, which it does, but it's also because that's that moment. And notice that this baby, it's a very tender and vulnerable moment when the baby's like, this is totally new, and I know it's right. I knew it was there the whole time. And that's what we're trying to do with our audiences. I hear that is true. I remember listening to someone who was a public speaker who said, the best compliment someone can give me is not, that was amazing, that was incredible, you're so clever. It's, that is so true. So we're trying to create this ecosystem, this whole network of activities and feelings where somebody can make a shift in what they're thinking. So now I'm going to give you just some really practical stuff that's come out of some of the research we've been doing about how we might apply this to change agents. One is do less overwhelming with information, which is kind of hilarious because I'm standing up here with a giant slideshow for you, but less of overwhelming people with information. Less of motivating through outrage, shock, and disgust. I know that it feels like if you can show someone the polar bear that's starving and falling off of the melting ice floe, that is going to motivate someone. But what I'm telling you is that's going to make them want to get as far away from the conversation as they possibly can. So that might mean that they don't listen anymore. It might mean that they give you a small donation and bail and don't come back. But what you've done is instilled a whole personal distress. It's called empathic distress. And when someone's overwhelmed by empathic distress, their number one goal is to reduce that distress, not to help what's happening. So what you have to do is calibrate the story that you're telling so that they do have feelings about it, they get the importance of it, but you haven't moved them into disgust and panic and urgency mode to get rid of that feeling. It seems obvious, it should be obvious, but staying out of insulting, putting down, elitism, arrogance, ranting. I'm going to tell you that the political people on the scene right now that I admire the most are still ranting with a lot of anger. There's a few people who aren't. You know, I love Van Jones, I love Cory Booker. There's some people out there who aren't doing it. But, you know, the vast majority of people who I think are doing a great job are still saying, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. I'm shocked, I'm outraged, it's disgusting. People that I used to love to watch, I still do a little bit, Stephen Colbert, people like that. It's good for us to have some humor, but I really don't like the insulting of the appearance, let's say, of our current president. I wouldn't be okay with insulting the appearance of my candidate, you know? So that kind of behavior, we think that it's good because it inspires the base that we're working with, and they think it's good because it's inspiring the base that they're working with, but it's not building any bridges between the two. When I talk about this, giving people a break and not being so angry, I mean, I totally fall into it myself, but when we look at someone else and say, I can't believe you believe that, I can't believe you're doing that, it makes me sick, it disgusts me, we're forgetting that we all can get lost. We all can see in a way that's not clear. We all can be motivated by fear. We all can derive some pleasure from revenge. We all have that ability. I had an experience just a couple of years ago where I got very lost in a completely different way than what we're talking about now in my life. I wasn't seeing clearly at all. And I needed friends to help me say, you've gone off the track. And I was like, I don't know what you're talking about, you know? And it took a long time, and again, a whole ecosystem of change to be like, wait, I really was not seeing things clearly at all. So what if we were to look at people who don't believe the same way as we do, and even if we don't think their opinion is as valid as ours, we at least are able to tell ourselves, everyone can get lost, everyone cannot see clearly. Let's just work with a little bit of compassion here. So if those are the things not to do, What are the things to do more of? If you boil down that consciousness transformation model that I talked about earlier from our research, it really boils down to these 4 elements. What we want to give people are personally relevant direct experiences, evidence and facts, tools and applications that they can use starting that day in their life, and a community of support. So let's go just a little bit into it. Direct experiences like the experience that baby had, like the experience that Edgar had, whatever you can do. Part of the reason I say sometimes turn to your partner and talk about something in your life that's like that is to bring it home to you in your own personal experience. And so in your talks and in your strategies, make sure that you're giving at least a little bit of time for people to have personal experiences. Facts and evidence, I'm completely breaking this rule in this talk, 3 at a time. Don't expect anyone to leave a talk or a piece of information that you're giving them or a video with any more than 3 pieces of information. So if you can boil down everything you're doing, every opportunity you have, if you have a meeting with a big shot who might be able to make some major policy changes, don't give him the 14-point plan, give him the 3-point plan. Tools, one of the major things that allows somebody to make changes in their behavior, to actually follow through on something that you're advocating for, is to give them a way to do it. We think it'd be obvious how to do it. You know, hey, Nike, close all of your sweatshops, just do it. Well, the truth is, they might be pretty smart at making shoes and making profit, but they might not be as smart at how to do that. We have to give them actual ways to do it that have been thought through. Another very powerful thing is membership and community. One of my favorite examples here is there were 2 towns and they were studying how to best get people to recycle. One of the towns, they put up posters that said, please recycle your plastic bottles. The other one said, please join the 70% of your neighbors who are already recycling their plastic bottles. Second one, much more effective. So this is why it's good to have t-shirts and baseball caps and those little rubber bracelets and all that stuff that we do to make somebody feel like they're a member of something. Because when you're asking someone who is in a whole different bubble than we are here in the Bay Area to not only do something that is unfamiliar to them, but to also risk loss of their entire supportive community by doing it, you're putting them into a very unsafe mode, and it's not realistic to ask them to do it. If you tell them, however, you are joining the ranks of these amazing, you're joining the ranks of Gates and Jobs, or you're joining the ranks of people that they respect who are doing this. Look, here they are, we're wearing the same hat that I'm giving you right now. They all of a sudden go, oh, I could have a new community. Super important, and why the global purpose movement is so important, why Fetzer Institute community is so important, why IONS maintains a community. None of us go out on our hillside and do it by ourselves because we know it has to be in community. And finally, your presence is almost the most important part of all of this. I mean, really, all of this do more and do less stuff, you could almost toss it out. If you cultivate your mind, body, spirit system as though you were going to run a marathon, as though you were about to give birth, that you condition your mind, body, and spirit on a daily basis to be a clear and transparent channel for what the positive force of the universe wants to happen for us. And it just can't be overestimated. It can't be said enough. I don't do it all the time. I need to do it more. I want to join you, and I want you to join me in promising that we are not going to sacrifice our well-being on the altar of what we're calling purpose, because it's actually not going to be successful anyway if we're not in a place of well-being while we're doing it. So I had a teacher named Angela Sarian, and she religiously or devotedly would not take a meeting before noon any time. Doesn't matter how important it was. I do not take a meeting before noon. Every minute from 7 a.m. to 11:59 was spent in reflection, time in nature, exercise, walking her talk, being in relationship, and that made her hours from noon to 6 like 10 times as productive and influential as the hours that we spend from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. without taking that time. Okay, so I'll end with saying that the Institute of Noetic Sciences is now working on this brand new project called Consciousness, Communication, and Change. And the goal is to take a set of principles just like the ones I just told you, plus more, taking neuroscience, social science, the science of transformation, and wisdom practices to candidates who are running for office, to change makers who are advocating for causes around a just and sustainable world. And in a way, I guess one silly analogy is it's kind of like trying to give Jedi powers to the people who are fighting the good fight. That's a fight metaphor, I know, but we're really trying to give people science-based ways that they can enhance their effectiveness as a change maker. And one of the visions I have is that everyone running for midterm elections could have access to this training. I'm saying on both sides of the aisle, as long as they agree that they are working toward a just and sustainable future for all. Thank you. So I'll end with this, that one of the things that makes me happiest right now is I'm collaborating with not just other academic psychologists and scientists, which I've basically spent 99% of my time with from the time I was 18 years old, but now I'm starting to work with designers, virtual reality people, media people, movie producers, storytellers, people who are in fields that have been unfamiliar to me, and I'm finding it so incredibly enlivening because they are the ones who are going to help us bring a design eye to how to carry this message forward. One of the great things that comes from game builders, video game builders, is world building. So when you start to program a video game, you have to build a world you have to build a believable world that people will think they're going to be in and want to spend time in. And that's what we need to do as change agents. We need to build a world that people want to spend time in. Martin Luther King Jr. didn't say everything sucks and it's all terrible. He said, I have a dream. And when people heard it, they saw his dream for just a little while, and that's what inspired them. Not how bad everything was and trying to get away from that, but what the dream for the future was. So I think we can use psychology, science, art, design, technology to open up new worlds to people. And I'm going to leave you with this last video that's just another illustration or metaphor for how I think this can happen.
Okay, so Tim, we're going to go over these questions. Who are you? And you said, I'm Tim Bartow. I'm a filmmaker and a writer. Right, good. And look, there you are.
Oh, hey.
You look like a little prince there.
Oh my God.
I know you are so cute. If there were one thing that you want the world to know about you, what would it be? I am not mentally challenged. People see me in the wheelchair. They assume that I have cognitive challenges or delays. They treat me like a child when they see the chair and don't recognize that I have dreams and aspirations like everyone else. I want to travel, to expand my world, and to escape the daily monotony of being in a wheelchair and having my mobility restricted. Not being able to drive a car, or even get on a bus, taxi, train, or plane by myself. It feels bad. Feels stressful and frustrating, and then you said, ugh, something like that. Yeah, that. What's something you wish you could do? I want to make movies, and I want to change the world through my storytelling. I want to have lots of friends who can relate to me. I wish I could walk. I want a girlfriend. I would love to be in a movie or on a stage in a musical on Broadway. I would change people's perceptions of persons with physical and cognitive challenges. They have lots to contribute, and I know that I'm tired of being marginalized. I would like to live with people like me who strive to make a difference in the world. So Tim, when I was in New York visiting my good friend, she let me experience this type of storytelling. Do you know what these are?
No.
They are VR glasses. Is anything happening? look up.
I see a shark.
Uh-oh. Swim, Tim, swim!
I see a seal. Oh, the other country. I'm in the boat.
Where are you?
I'm in the woods.
Are you walking?
No, fly.
Oh my gosh. I knew that this would be a game changer for you. There are hundreds of stories.
Like everything was accessible.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Where in the world would you go?
Stay in Africa, England, China, Japan, Antarctica, and France to see the tower and go. And Germany, go get some beer and brothers. Other the islands, my goodness. Yeah, this time.
Okay. Okay, so as change makers, as people of purpose, we need to up our game. We need to get all of the tools available to us to build new worlds that people can actually see and move toward. And I really appreciate your attention.